And thanks for coming on again, bro. Yeah, I know it's been ages. We spoke about
It's,
this almost 2 years
it's like
ago,
a
man.
year. No, it's like a year
Time
ago, wasn't it?
was it a year?
Yeah, it
Nah,
was
bro.
a year ago. Yeah.
I feel like it's longer. I feel like anyway.
No, 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 no. Because the reason why I say that is because the first series that I was involved with was out. It was coming out or had come out.
Yes,
And
that's right.
oh no, it was just over a year. It was just over a year.
Just
So
over a year. Just over a
yeah, the
year.
first series that I did of Audley Road was on it. So it was coming out, and we spoke in the run up to that. And now the third series is that I'm involved with is out. So or is still rolling out at the moment. So it's been just over a year.
It's insane how like time just flies by so quick, bro. I uh
Mm.
I really and I didn't even do an intro. I
Yeah,
thought
cool. We can start again.
we've
Let's
got
start again.
we've just jumped straight in. Guys, welcome back to the Brothers Geek Out podcast and our second guest of the year, and a returning guest as well. I want to say a massive thank you to Vincent Jerome for coming on and saying, you know, the Brothers Geek Out podcast. I want to say thank you for coming on, dude.
Yeah, it's all good, man. It's all good. It's a pleasure to be here. You know what I mean? Like it was fun. Last time was fun.
Yes.
And so yeah, just thought we'd just why not do it again? You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. We had a great conversation last time, guys. And if you go check out the Geek Out sessions on our playlist on YouTube, you'll catch the episode there, guys. But now, since we've kind of like grown the podcast, we're on all other streaming platforms as well. So if you don't want to see our pretty faces, you guys can go listen to us. But you do want to see our pretty faces, you're still here on the YouTube channel. So I'm grateful for that. But massive thank you to all the listeners and people that watch in. And we got a lot of love last year, and I hate saying a small creator and small podcast because I think we're all big in our own ways. But
Yeah.
the overwhelming messages that we got over last year, it's insane that, just putting your passions out there in the world can
Mm,
connect to somebody and change their perspective
mm.
in different ways. And we've had some great conversations. But no, thank you for coming on again. And we're going to be talking about a book that we said a graphic novel that we said we were going to talk about on the last
Yeah,
episode. So
yeah, yeah. I kind of let it slip last time,
you've been busy.
and then
You've been busy,
you kind
bro.
of picked up on it. You kind of picked well, but when we spoke, you kind of picked up on it, and you were like, "We should do that," and I was like, "Oh shit." I was like, oh, okay. Now I need to now we need to do it because it's like because obviously when I spoke about it, I spoke it was kind of I don't want to say a vulnerable moment, but it was kind of a thing of yeah, we were talking about just kind of what things mean to people and storylines and the importance of the human spirit and all that kind of stuff. And
Hmm.
so when you kind of pull me up on it, it's like, yeah, we should do that. And it's like, oh shit, I have to maybe just bare my soul a little bit more than I'm used to. So
No, which
yeah,
is fine, which is fine. You said something quite big, and I'm going to agree with it because I think reading it over this weekend again made me
yeah,
realize, you know what? You're right, bro. It for me, it's one of the best comic books that came out in that era, and to this day still stands really at the forefront of what comic books, the dramatic change in comic books, and
yeah.
what Frank Miller brought to that industry before he
Mm,
jumped on, like, The Dark Knight Returns and things like that.
hmm.
It was what he did with this character was
Yeah,
insane, bro. And reading it again, I was like, oh my God, like you could see what they picked out on inspirations for the TV show, but
yeah, 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 yeah.
there's some elements on there that we'll probably touch base on definitely. But I mean,
Yeah.
let's recap, man. What like still your is it still your go-to, your best comic book ever?
Just in case I mean, I'm guessing if people are watching this or listening to this, they'll see what the episode's about. But just so you know that me and kids are going to be talking about Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli's seminal Daredevil Born Again.
Mm.
Um, so I was so I reread it over the past few
Hmm.
days. I did it in installments. I kind of did it in three acts.
Hmm.
I think the first act where, everything happens, and then second act where, you kind of see him getting back to things, and then the third act, like the triumphant kind of, thing. And it almost feels like, I wouldn't say it feels like three different books, but like the last third, there is definitely like the shifts are just
Hmm.
so kind of crazy. But would I say it's still one of my favorites? I guess it's weird, man, because I'm rereading it. I still love it, and I still there's things in it that I picked up on that I didn't resonated that didn't resonate maybe the first few times I read it. And it's like, you know how Kevin Smith talks about how every year, I don't know if he still does this, but at one point every year he'd go back and read Dark Knight Returns. I don't read this every year, but
Hmm.
every few years I'll crack open Born Again. I don't know, man. Like I it's hard to say because it's such a specific book. Do you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Like, and for me, it's kind of uh if you read it as a comic, read like yeah, it moves and all the rest of that, but this because it's so cinematic,
Hmm.
I think that's what appeals to me. You know what I mean? Like, and some people don't read comics for the reasons that, I've read comics in the past. Like some people like more kind of whether like space exploration, not exploration, that's not even a word. Space exploration or like um more fantasy kind of elements, like your saga or whatever. And some people like the very kind of fantastical, twisted kind of whatever. Like there's a genre of comics for everybody. But for me, I've always been interested in I think I said before on the podcast, like I've always been interested in cops and robbers. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like all the characters that I liked growing up was cops and robbers on some level. And even though they kind of some of them lean into other things, they were all like the Flash in his initially is cops and robbers. The
Hmm.
rogues were always trying to rob a bank, and he had to
That's
come in.
right.
Or Mirror, Mirror Master was doing his thing, Captain Cold and Weather Wizard and all them people, and he was just basically stopping them from, doing all that. And then obviously you have the whole multiverse stuff and all that. But Batman, Spider-Man, these guys are all. It's all a version of cops and robbers, and obviously as time developed, it became more about in Spider-Man's sense like science and
Hmm.
Batman's sense is cops and robbers kind of went from like to kind of terrorism and you know what I mean. So um, it's hard to I it's weird because I know it's a comic, but I don't really rereading it. I was just like, this is something different.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? Like it's just put it this way, there was some moments of it where I was just shocked. I was like, oh shit, I forgot that happened. That's that's intense.
Very,
I
very,
mean,
very,
so
very.
but I think as far as like it depends for me, for my tastes, it's definitely uh one of the best superhero stories uh ever ever told. I mean,
Hmm.
I kind of go back and forth with our mutual friend and friend of the show, Rob Ailing,
Yeah.
because we me and him connected over Batman, obviously,
Hmm.
and for years, I mean, for the majority of my life, Batman was my guy. He was, you know what I mean? He was my superhero, and then I got to a point where there was just things where I was like, oh, I don't know if the same ideals match up. So I'm just rambling now, but when it came to Daredevil, there was just that initial thing where it's like, oh yes, this is my guy kind of thing. And so we go back and forth, and we had the conversation recently about because they re-released the separate issues of year one, didn't they?
Hmm. Yes.
And Rob, I remember Rob took a picture and he was like, "Oh my God, the colors just amazing." And I was like, "Yeah, like the Born Again team really came through." You know what I mean? Because ultimately, you you wouldn't have you wouldn't have year one if you didn't have Born Again.
Exactly.
In the same
Exactly.
way that one of my favorite Frank Miller stories, which I don't think gets talked about enough, maybe because it's out of print. No, I don't. I think you might be able to get it in a collection or something. Yeah, you can. You can. But one of my favorite Frank Miller stories is Electra Lives Again,
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
um, which I managed to get by itself, like the original epic hardback kind of
Oh,
one.
nice.
Um, and I look at that book and I'm like, you don't get that book if you don't like if Dark Knight Returns wasn't a thing, you would never get that book.
That's right. That's
You know what
right.
I'm saying? And in the same way that you kind of yeah, you just and if you don't get Dark Knight Returns, you don't get Sin City. You know, and if you don't get Sin City, you might not get Man Without Fear. You probably might get Man Without Fear, but it's just one of those things. Yeah.
It's weird because I think Frank Miller went through, and I think we all do that during our journey in work, where your back
Mm,
catalog doesn't get recognized until something big like The Dark Knight comes out, and then everybody's like, "Oh,
mm,
you, I didn't know he did Daredevil. I didn't know he did these characters and Electro and
mm,
so on." So
mm,
I think that's just the way the industry works. Uh, and the consumer as well, because we're used to getting all the ones that are going to be in our faces. During that time, it would have
mm,
been Batman and Superman, it would have been the X-Men, it would have been all of those characters. But
mm.
you got Frank, who brings in this real, just a realistic storytelling vibe to what he's done. I mean, superheroes
Yeah.
and the darker side of, being, and not really, I still don't class Daredevil as a superhero because his abilities is just heightened senses, right? His strength, he
Yeah, but
hasn't got superhuman strength.
it's heightened to a point where it is supernatural. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it
no, of
kind of,
course, yeah. But I
you
still
know,
see him as like the ground level, you know, Hell's Kitchen, beat 'em up type of dude. And like, this
yeah,
Born Again
yeah, yeah,
story
yeah.
shows that, what Kingpin does in this story is breaks him,
Mm.
mentally, physically.
That was one of the first things that rereading it, I was like, oh shit. So Karen sells him out in the first page, and then the next couple pages you meet the Kingpin, and you realize that he gets the information to him, the fact that
Hmm.
Matt is Daredevil, um, and he plots some plans for 6 months, and then the next few pages is you see the effects of that last 6 months. You don't
Exactly.
see it in real time, but you see it play out in
Yeah.
3, 4 pages, well, 4 or 5 pages, like, and then I think actually to the end of that particular book, that particular issue,
That issue, yeah.
it's just yeah, the pacing of the story is just mad, like you're in it.
Yeah.
And I was reading it and I was just the whole thing, and I was like, at points I was like, if anybody said to me, where should where should I start, would I give them this? And I was like, you could, but it's really, because you get the backstory, you get the stuff about his dad being a boxer, you get the stuff that about him being blinded, you get that, you get all of that in there. But um yeah, I don't know, because I think that there needs to be a level of familiarity, even though Frank Miller does a really good job of bringing people up to speed. Um, I think there needs to be a level of familiarity because of how quick it goes. Do you know what I mean?
No, that's right. That's right. I think there was like trying to remember if there was like so the previous issues do kind of go into it before it goes into to Born Again. So
Yeah.
it will give you a bit of backstory on then. So can't remember what the issue numbers they were, but
No,
There
so I
was
think it
there
was
was
like
there was a few.
300 and something, or
That's right.
maybe because I remember so I don't know if I said this in our last conversation, but because this is a Daredevil centric conversation, I'll definitely bring it in. So for the UK, I'm gonna have a few references that like the UK audience would understand. So so in 2020, when Boris cancelled Christmas, um, I just was like, okay, well, I can't see my family.
Hmm.
Right, okay, what am I doing? And then I was just, it wasn't. I wouldn't say I was depressed. I was just kind of in a funk because
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was that time. It was just like, ugh. And I just kind of went back and was like, think of things that just kind of make you happy, or things that you're interested in, or just, because sometimes you can forget. And
Exactly. Yeah. So true. So true.
I don't know why. I took a real interest in like feudal Japan.
Hmm.
Oh my, I say I don't know why. I do know why because I've always been interested in it, and I didn't realize that my interest in feudal Japan comes from Ninja Turtles, and Ninja Turtles wouldn't exist without Daredevil.
Devil. Yeah.
And then when I was an adult and I kind of gone did the because I sort of when I was an adult and I realized there was a connection, I was like, oh, that's interesting. But it wasn't until that time, like at late 2020 going into 2021, where I was just like, oh shit, if I could pick a person, a singular person who had the most impact on me as a child, it would be Frank Miller, and I didn't even know. Because I was a massive Ninja Turtles fan. And then after Ninja Turtles, I got into Batman proper,
Hmm.
and this was post Miller Batman.
Hmm.
And so, anyway, the reason why I say all that is because um, also I read totally separate, and I love it, and I need to read it again. Um, I can't remember who wrote it, but Sean Gordon Murphy, as he was then, as he probably I don't know if he still is now. He might just be Sean Murphy. Wrote no, he drew. God, I can't remember who wrote it.
The Murphy
Um,
World, right? The Murphy World with the
no,
White
I'm not
Knight.
talking about Batman. We're talking
Oh,
about no. I'm talking about. He wrote for Image. No, he drew for Image. Tokyo Ghost,
oh, yes, yes, yes. You're right. Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
I loved that book. And that was around the time I did the deep dive into it. Well, anyway, so once I'd done it, I've been like, oh my God, Miller's work, so on and so forth. I kind of went back and read a lot of the stuff, but then I read the Denny O'Neil stuff that led up to Board Again, and I read the stuff that kind of was just before Miller
Yeah.
and just after Miller. So just after his initial run, and then Ann Nesenti came in and he kind of switched it up. And before again, Denny O'Neil came in at some point, and then it kind of built up to Born Again. Then after that, I don't know how much after Born Again. Lee and Lee Weeks was the artist. And I can't, was it Chichester?
Oh,
Um,
let's
Came and
have a
he did
check.
Last Rites. Um, I think it was Chichester. I can't remember, but yeah, yeah. So I don't know what
Chichester.
my point
No,
was,
no,
but
no.
my
It's all
point
right.
was,
Chichester. Chichester. I'm just gonna double check. I think it was. You're
yeah,
right. It was Chichester. Yeah, that's right.
yeah. And
Dan Chichester. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So you were saying like about the issue, the Denny O'Neil issues before.
Hmm.
Again, wonderfully drawn by David Mazzucchelli. Um, they kind of started to show Matt becoming a little bit more unhinged.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they I don't know if they must have known that Frank was coming back. So Danny O'Neill was probably like, right, so how are we going to tee this up so we
Yeah.
can bring back the comic superstar? Do you know what I mean? So that's what he
No,
was at the time,
definitely.
man. Like,
Yeah, no, exactly.
yeah,
I mean, even with those previous issues and how it leads into this, I mean, as you said, unhinged, bro. There's, the panels where
mm,
he goes mad and he usually holds himself back. He's going full blunt on these guys and like, beating them
yeah,
properly. where he's a
Yeah.
character that really holds back. He really believes in the justice that he serves, and getting the
Mm.
doing the right thing, I suppose. Where now it's come
Yeah.
to a point where you've really pushed this character to a depth where he's questioning himself. You know what I mean? It shows the
Mm.
struggle of, we as the general human beings in this world, without it being
Yeah.
science fiction or comic book related reality, we have those times. We get to a point where we're unhinged. I'm at that time at the moment now where I'm unhinged. No, I wouldn't say unhinged, but I'm my tolerance level at my age now is so low, bro. Like I used to come to a point
Mm.
where, I'm a guy who just, I don't let people walk over me, but I kind of put my things out there. But
Mm. Mm. Mm.
now I'm coming to a point where it's like, why isn't this done? And why am I
Mm.
confronting you about something? And why are you beating around the bush to tell me something that has a simple answer? Just tell me
Mm.
straight
Mm.
up.
Mm.
But I
Yeah,
suppose
because
yeah.
that's getting older. That's not just older as in like or old, but or maturity. It's also more important about knowing your boundaries. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mm,
and that's something I think that we can all learn about. Um, this idea of what we are and aren't willing to tolerate. It's important to kind of know that in everyday life and feeding it back into the book. I think that, and we definitely spoke about this last time I was on. Um, One of the things that I love about the character is, and I understand why they kind of lean so hard into the fact that he can take a beating in the
mm,
Netflix show, because that's cinematic, that's
mm-hmm.
visual. It's kind of like, you know, uh, it's like Rocky, you know what I mean? Rocky keeps
Yeah,
getting
yeah.
there, he keeps getting back up and all that kind of stuff. So I understand why they leaned into that. But for me, and anybody who doesn't really know the character that well, I will always say the thing that is attractive to me is his kind of mental fortitude, his kind of you know what I mean, his ability to overcome things that aren't, you know, supernatural or,
Mm-hmm.
fantastical in that way. Yeah, I mean it's a superhero book, so you're gonna see him swinging through the streets and kicking, ninjas and terrorists and supervillains and all those kind of things in the face and stuff. But like one of the things as I was reading the book, I was like, wow, I like I can't think of too many heroes or superheroes, comic book heroes, whatever, that have been given uh, a religion for one. I know there
Mm-hmm.
are some, and Kamal Khan's one. I'm not saying there aren't any
No, no,
before people get in the
yeah.
comments and start going crazy. I'm saying that, but follow me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like I don't know too many superheroes who have been given a religion, but also have been given mental health
Mm-hmm.
issues. Do you know what I mean? Like Matt, and I think it's a beautiful thing as well because when you kind of, as I was rereading it, I couldn't help think about how um like Bendis and Brubaker and more more kind of prominently for me, Mark
Mm,
Waid touched on um very subtly on Daredevil's mental state, his mental health. Like, because you have that. One of my favorite stories, one of my favorite, my favorite Daredevil run is Bendis.
mm-hmm.
Um, but there's one of my favorite stories within that run is the King of Hell's Kitchen, and it's set a year after Matt um, defeats the Kingpin
Mm-hmm.
and like takes off his mask in front of like the underworld ultimately, and he's like, "If you need a kingpin, I'm your kingpin." Do you know what I mean? and then in that year, Matt completely turns around the kitchen. You know what I'm saying? Like he completely turns it around, but he hasn't really been active
Hmm.
as Daredevil in that, or yeah, not really. And then he has to come back to being. He doesn't. I don't know if he comes back. He does come back to being Daredevil. Yeah, he does put on the suit again because he has to fight the Yakuza.
Oh
Um,
yes, yes, that's right.
because oh man,
That's a good run.
that
That is a good run.
that
Yeah, I forgot that.
Alex Maleev scene where it's like Matrix Reloaded, where they're in the rain and it's just one dude, one blind dude with a cane and like 30 like souped up Yakuza members. I was like, this is the way they do the raindrops and it was
Yeah.
just beautiful. Um, but at the end of that story, there's a question of, I think it might be Ben Urich poses the questions like, no, maybe it's Foggy. I think Foggy said it, and then maybe Ben said it. And anyway, it came back to Mila, his wife, and the question of, are you having a nervous breakdown?
Mm.
Do you know what I mean? Like the question of it is yeah, the question of it like lingers. Once it's posed, you're like, given everything that happens, Electra, Karen,
Hmm.
obviously, the stuff, everything. It's like, is he just going, him being outed by the press, him taking over the kitchen as the new kingpin. Um, like, that's there's that question. And when Mila poses that question to him, he's just silent.
Yeah.
Like he can't say anything and in that thing, you're just like, oh shit, yeah, he is. Like like even issues before that is again in the Bendis run where he's been outed and he's running across the rooftops and he's just like he's in the rain and there's no signs and you can't tell. There's one panel, it might be a splash page, can't remember, even though it's right there. But I've got so much junk behind me that if I
You know
go
what
to
I
get
mean?
it, you're gonna have to cut to you. If you're cutting this up, you're gonna have to cut to you. So if we have an agreement that if I go to get the book,
I
you
cut
cut
it
to
there. I'll put
you.
my face up.
Yeah, okay, right. So I'm gonna go and get it
Go on. Go, go,
in
go,
like
go. Go grab it.
3, 2.
Two.
King of Hell's Kitchen. Uh, this is here it is.
There we
King
go.
of Hell's Kitchen. Love this book, man. Um, then obviously there's an epic fight where he's got Luke Cage, Spider-Man, and Iron Fist helping him out, which is cool. I think it's there. Froggy told me about Mr. Urich's theory that you maybe maybe you had a nervous breakdown, that you never got over the death of this Karen Page person, and that
Hmm.
Matt interrupts her and goes, I know the theory. And she goes, is it true? And then you have this panel where he's just looking,
Mm.
and then it's just like, is it true? And he replies, I don't know. And then she says, do you think it's true? Then he says, I think it might be. Like, that's fucking dope, man. Like that's drama, man.
Hmm.
And that's what I'm saying. Like you deal with that stuff, and I've got out here as well. So I want to show you that splash page if it's there. But yeah, it's stuff like that. And uh in Mark Wade's run, which is actually is the only no disrespect to that run. I'm not a and again, shout out to Matt Draper, who has a great YouTube channel. And I know he loves the swashbuckling Daredevil, but I'm not about the swashbuckling. Um, even though I love that channel, and
Yeah.
I think he's great, and I love the way he breaks things down. Um, I do disagree. Like I'm about the ninjas.
Yep.
I'm about the ninjas. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, I can't find it, but anyway. So and in Mark Wade's run, where the purple man. I was about to say the yellow man. That's not a person. The purple man's kids,
Hmm.
like they're messing with people's heads and stuff like that, and they kind of get into Matt's head, and in that 2 issue story, maybe 3 issues actually, Wade kind of goes over and just shows that Matt is someone who has suffered with depression, and it's so rare that you have a superhero that deals with that stuff. There it is. Oh, finally got it. So it is a splash page, but there's all this other stuff around the splash page. So I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, we can see that.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying, man. Like you don't know if he's it's definitely raining, but you don't know if he's crying or what. Like that's mad. Anyway, um the point I'm trying to make is, you know, you probably wouldn't have that or that richness if it wasn't for Miller doing Born Again.
No, of course. No, definitely. It's because it sets the tone for everything later on, isn't it? I mean,
Mm,
writers and artists will change, you know, maybe sometimes a big change, but usually keep to that inspiration. I think most artists and writers
mm,
that get into that industry will take inspiration and motivation from what they grew up with. And if you speak to most people that are in
mm,
that industry, it's one of the first comic books they say like this was a
mm,
game changer for me, and this is why I want to work on this character. I think
mm,
I think personally for me, reading it again this weekend and how hard hitting it was with some of the scenes,
mm.
there's a scene
Yeah.
there which always gets me. And I remember when I read it the first time, when he's in the bed, he died for like a
Oh,
second or two.
yeah.
And the woman that was there at the beginning when he was in the accident was back again. And he asked if it was my mum, and she was her heartbeat. He just listened to that
Yeah.
heartbeat.
He
It
goes,
was like
she
such a
doesn't say
subtle,
anything.
yeah, it's
But
just
yeah,
such a
he's like, yeah, I think he said something like she doesn't say anything,
yeah,
but her heart doesn't lie or something. And it skips a beat. She's
yeah,
lying. And then there's
yeah.
a little wry smile on Matt's face. So
And it's
yeah,
such a
it's there's
sweet
yeah,
scene. Yeah,
it
it's a
is.
touching
Yeah.
scene.
And this is the thing about Miller. Like it's really funny because I think if you look at his work, the there's so much like hyper masculinity at a point in his career, but there's also maybe not in the same books, but you can pick up certain moments in Miller's work where there really are like moments of real sensitivity.
Hmm.
Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying when people think about Frank Miller, they don't think that, and I know that there's a reason why. There's enough proof to be like, well, this is why people don't think that, and I get that. I'm not saying that I'm not saying he's a poet like
No,
Thomas
no, no.
Hardy or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like I'm not
No,
I'm
exactly.
not
Yeah.
not going there, but it, yeah, moments like that, like it's really even like when him and Karen are reunited in the book. That kind of the they're so broken at that
Mm.
point, and Matt's yeah, they just both of them are just so utterly broken. Do you know what I mean? And like when she's going cold turkey and she's kind of like biting down on his shoulder and shit, and it's just kind
Mm.
of like, they just, I know I mentioned Rocky before, and I'm not trying to make it a running thing, but it's like that, it's like Rocky, like
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
she's got pieces, I've got pieces, so it's that kind of shit. You know what I mean? So,
Exactly, exactly.
um, yeah, man, and that's the thing. I don't know too many superheroes that have that. Do you know what I mean? And they don't make it like a big. Like for instance, is it like Century who's bipolar
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
or something like that? But that's like a main factor of his personality,
Yes, that's right.
or he's
Yeah.
schizophrenic or something, or do you know what I mean? Like you don't know who you're getting and all that kind of stuff, and it's like that's like a main thing. with Daredevil, it's just one of the many things. You know, the fact that you know he's. I'm a big YouTube fan. Like I go on YouTube and I go down YouTube rabbit holes all the time. Um, and I don't mind it because it's always stuff that I'm interested in. It's always stuff
That's
like,
right.
oh,
Yeah.
okay, well, it's about this and so on and so forth. And there's a few video essays about like the psychology of Daredevil.
Mm.
And I just find it fascinating because it's like, and everybody likes to talk because obviously Batman's Batman, so everybody likes to talk about Batman and like, oh yeah, this and that and that and that and that and that. And that. But it's just like I don't want to quantify people's pain. But when you kind of weigh all the things up, like all the bad things happen to Matt.
Mm.
Like if in his what like all the bad things happen to Matt. In a sense that there's just a succession. It's a succession of misery. Do you know what I mean? Like I was when I was rereading the book, I was just thinking about the kind of trauma that comes with losing your sight. I don't know what that's like.
Mm.
You know, thank God. Um, you know, the being raised by a single parent and then losing that parent. One of the things one of the things I think they did a really good job of in the Netflix series, and again they did. Frank Miller created the character, and you know, in his original run, then went back and revisited him in Born Again, not Born Again, Man Without Fear, but like the relationship that Matt has with Stick.
Mm-hmm.
Like Matt is looking for a father, and
That's right.
Stick is like, I'm not looking for a father, I'm looking for a warrior. This is why I find it interesting, like when people are just going back to Batman again, when people just kind of just accept that everything Batman does is right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, don't get me wrong, like the guy's doing what he believes to be right and he's dedicated his life to this cause and all the rest of that. But it's just kind of like it's the same thing. Like I've got Nightwing back there. There he is. Do you know what I mean? And there's a reason why. I don't know why I like motherfuckers with sticks and unitards, um, who are very balletic and you know uh, so I don't know why that's the thing that's in my life, but you know, him and Daredevil. But actually, I do think that shout out to Scott McDaniel because if it wasn't for his run in the 90s, um, I never, you know, what I mean, his yeah, it was like late 90s, wasn't it,
It was
or
late
early
90s, yeah,
2000s? I can't
definitely.
remember.
But they have a
Yeah,
certain, like, just to kind of go on why, and this is just me kind of thinking why you
mm,
would like, they have a certain flow and mannerism that you
yeah,
probably relate to, and that's why, because of
maybe
how
yeah, or
I think
aspire to. I
because
don't know, man.
yeah, like, I think both characters, even though with the amount of stuff they've gone through, have this certain slickness to them. Matt Murdock has it,
Yeah, they're both.
Dick Grayson has it. He's like really like they've got this cheeky manner to them, and
Yeah, yeah. I
it's
mean, they're
just
both
fun
of
to
them.
read.
Both of them.
Yeah,
Yeah, both of them are definitely good with the ladies.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, there's just. Anyway, going back to my point, it's like
Mm,
people always like you know your Batman's always right, so on and so forth, so the rest of that. But it's like I know that the whole thing in the comics lore is his biggest failure is Jason.
mm,
Um, that character can't catch a break, man.
mm,
But if you think about it, he and I know that Miller went crazy with it in All Star Batman. He really leaned into it. But Bruce wasn't. He was trying to get him to, you know, he was trying to get him to fight a war. He was he was recruiting a kid to fight this
mm,
war
yeah.
when all the kid needed was a dad. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, and I know their relationship is a lot healthier these days because you can't
Hmm.
keep beating, you know, you can't keep flogging that horse. Um, where it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like Dick is his most trusted ally after. after Alfred, in the law. Um, but there is that thing of just like, there's that thing. There's that, these people are lacking something, and maybe. But anyway, the reason why I mention that is because you think about in regards to like Matt, like also another thing about that makes me just think to myself, yeah, man, this guy's got, and it's not. I know it's not competition, but it's like he's a working class kid. You know what I'm saying? Like he comes from working class background. He doesn't have the financial support that Bruce does. Do you know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
that's
Like
right.
he
That's right.
doesn't, he just doesn't. You can have like powers and abilities and all the rest of that, but if you don't have the fortitude to kind of just you know, keep on moving, which he says in the book actually,
It
after
does.
after Turk stabs him. Um, yeah, he just and even that, it's like and he meets Electra and he loses Electra, then he becomes Daredevil, and he goes through that stuff, and Electra comes back into his life, and he loses Electra again, and he kind of, is she alive? Is she not alive? And then that kind of thing, and down the road, and then obviously his life gets taken away, his home gets taken away from him, born again, which
Hmm.
is and his way of making money and everything, his life gets taken away from him, but yet he's still able to come back from that and
Hmm.
have and find happiness in like what some would seem as like a meager existence. Like I don't think it is at all. I think the fact that he was this high flying lawyer, probably making, well, he owned the brownstone
Yeah,
in New York, so he couldn't been hard up for cash. Um, but yeah, just to think, just I just think he came back from that, and then the Karen stuff and being outed, and it's just like everything just gets thrown at this guy. Do you know what I mean? And it's
it
not
does.
about the red suit, which is one of the reasons why initially I said Born Again is one of my favorite stories, because it's about a guy like me or you, or it's about a person. The gender
Hmm.
doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? It's about a person who just is just going through it, and he doesn't use super heroics to get out of that situation. It's just about finding a way forward. And I, I haven't spoke publicly about this. I think I might have touched on it in our last conversation. But yeah, you know, one of the reasons this book like resonated with me so much, because like I think it was, I don't know, maybe yeah, it was about 2017. Like
Mm.
I fell into like a deep, like crippling depression
Hmm.
for like 9 months. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's like yeah, and it was, and you just kind of do. Oh, that's also the time that I read, because again, you go back to the things like, what do I like? Oh God, I'm so unhappy. And you just kind of like, I like comics, and so that's when I bought uh Paul Dini's A Dark Knight,
Hmm.
which is great. I love that book. I've only read it once. I should really read it again. I should really read it again. It's
Bring it
right there.
out. Bring it
I know I
out. It's
don't.
time to bring it out. But it helped you during that time.
Yeah, that Born Again. It's just that because I just like, as far as mental health on that kind of scale, I didn't understand. I think Born Again for me, I was just kind of reading it because I was like, I like this book, so on and so forth. And it wasn't until I was reading it, and you know how Miller does that thing where you meet Matt and he's in his brownstone, he's kind of like sprawled out, he's kind of whatever, and then he revisits that panel in different books at the beginning of different books, where there's one where he's in that like $8 hotel room. When I read that, and it was like I had $10 to my name, so I got this room and change, and I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, damn,
Because he's always in the fetal
that's
position in that book as well. Like,
yeah, that no, but he
it's a real.
gets to that. That's the thing. He those panels from when he's in the brownstone to the apart to the hotel to the alley. You see him curl up into the fetal
Yeah.
position over the course of those
That time,
panels.
yeah.
And
That's right.
and again, it was, I think like that's real, man. And I heard people on podcasts and all that kind of stuff talk about the same thing. Like they've spoken about how that the image of that, like I think anybody who's battled with depression on that level, and again, it's not a competition.
Hmm.
I'm talking about the severity of it. Anybody who's dealt with it like that understands that image. And when I saw it, when I was going through my shit, and I was just going through it again, so I was just reading it, and when I saw it, I was like, oh fuck. Do you know what I mean? Like it was just like, oh,
It's hard
okay,
hitting, man. It's hard hitting. It's stuff, as you said, that
yeah,
we go through, and Miller's put it into a comic book which is deeply connected to us in so many different ways.
mm,
The moving forward, the hardships of doing what he does, the way Kingpin tortures him. We have different people in our own lives that can torture us in different ways mentally,
mm-hmm,
and I think Kingpin went on that route in that story where I'm not
mm,
gonna physically beat down this man. I'm gonna mentally
mm,
torture this dude as well. And
mm,
uh Kingpin, got to that point where then after he was thinking, there's a scene where I can't remember, it was a couple of thugs he beat up and then drove a cab into the water, thinking, Kingpin thought, oh, that's it, he's done. And then they realized they
mm,
bring the
mm,
cab
mm.
out and it was like, he's not there, he's not in
There's no
there,
body,
which
there's no
puts kind
corpse
of
or
put
something
of a
like that. Yeah.
worry on him because he's like, you know what, I've pushed this guy to his absolute limit, and now I've given
Mm.
him the origin of not having no fear in the process
Yeah,
of
the
it.
man without hope
Yep.
a man without hope is a man without fear.
Yeah.
Um,
And we go through that,
is it that?
you
Is that what
know.
you said? A man without hope is
Yeah,
is a
yeah,
man
yeah,
without
that's right.
fear.
A man without hope
Right. Yeah.
is a man without no fear. So like it's something that we go through. I mean, fear plays a big part of
Mm,
our everyday lives, and how do we overcome that? Sometimes we're good.
mm,
We could go face front with it. Sometimes we've got that
mm,
little something in the basement that needs to come out, or sometimes we have to do it in a process which could take a longer way, but we can reach our
mm,
goals in different ways. I think. And this is for like the listeners in general. Like, most of the messages that we get is about how do you keep it up, and like and I'm honest with people. My podcast is me and my brother's podcast is about our mental health as well, because yes, last
mm,
year took its toll on me, and I've said that I took a break for like 6 weeks. I had to tell my brother, look bro, I'm exhausted. I'm really
mm,
out of it at the moment. I'm
mm,
struggling. It's not that yes, I had a baby, but it wasn't that, the financial struggles that came with it as well.
mm.
Cost of living went up. Man, my mortgage doubled last year. I
Damn.
honestly, towards the end of the year, with everything good that comes and all the good wins, I'll always continue as good memories. I always remind people, guys, it's not easy. It was a struggle. I barely survived last year because I'm thinking, how
Mm,
am I going to put food on the plate for two kids? How am I going to pay
mm,
for the mortgage, which is doubled, and I don't even earn that much. Like,
mm,
everybody can go on like, everything's hunky dory, but I always remind that with the good comes a balance of, I wouldn't say bad, but challenges that help us guide through these. And that's the my main reason why I read comic books is, yes, that
mm,
escapism, but sometimes, man, it just inspires and motivates me. The story of Born Again and what he went through in that 6 to 9 months, and
mm,
come out at the end. Yes, there were some rough times in between, but to come out at the end and put that suit on and go do what he does, when when he
mm.
faces Nuke, and it's like
Yeah.
he gets back into his element again. He's like, oh, I can't
That's
beat this
I'll be
dude. You know
honest
what I
with
mean?
you.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, rereading that, that's the bit that kind of lost me a bit. I was just like, this feels like it works and it becomes a completely different book. And I'm like, oh, this is
Mm.
interesting, so on and so forth. But I was just like, this feels like a remit from Marvel. This
I wouldn't
feels
be
like
surprised. I wouldn't
Marvel
be
was like,
surprised.
okay, so we have this Captain America story coming, and
Bring it in.
it would really great if you could set it up. It's going to be massive.
Yeah.
And then Miller was like, yeah, that works. Okay, great. Yeah, let's chuck it in. And
It's always, I think the first two chapters, as you said, work really well
mm,
by itself. And that's the third part of it where you're like, okay, there's a bit of, trickery in here,
mm,
but I kind of I take the comeback for me on that one because I had a not the exact same battle as Daredevil, but I had my own
Mm,
battles and my own challenges, which as a father is challenging because you come
mm,
home and your little girl's like, Daddy, why you look sad? Because I'm like, I can't tell her shit. I don't
mm.
know how I'm gonna pay the mortgage next month.
Yeah.
I have
Oh
to
my God.
find
Yeah,
a
that's
solution. I need
really,
to find a really
yeah.
good solution on what I do. And don't get me wrong, there are people there to help. And I think that's the main thing I want to say as well, that there are people there to help. Maybe they can't help
Mm,
financially, but to have a conversation about it, to talk about it, to
mm,
see where you can kind of work things out and to say you can get to that point. If I didn't have those conversations with friends, family, like what I'm gonna do, how I'm gonna, I don't understand some of this stuff. My dyslexia and my ADHD probably maybe not even understand a lot of the stuff that goes through with it. But I just
mm,
need somebody to tell me because I'm a visual person. I'm a visual learner. You give me
mm. Me
something
too. Yeah.
visually, I'll repeat. I'll be able to regurgitate that back to you. But you know, as I said, and I ended up making some promises this year to say that, all right, I worked really hard last year, very hard, and to a
Mm,
point where I snapped, and I snapped at people, and I apologize to the people that I
mm.
did snap at, but it was because I didn't know how to, uh, what's the word? There's a word where I couldn't output it in a creative form.
Mm,
I was doing it because I was angry at myself. I didn't, there's
mm,
things you can catch early, you with Daredevil's character in this as well. He didn't catch on to these things really quickly. They
mm.
slowly got taken away from him.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah,
Yeah, it's
that's my part of it. That's what I kind of take from reading that again and the encouragement and the motivation of. I mean, we're always going to hear it, and yes, it's cliche, but it is how we keep going forward.
yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, there's the cliches are there for a reason because they because
Hmm.
they they exist in some level of truth, and
Exactly.
and you know yeah, I get what you're saying, man. It's a funny it's so interesting hearing you talk about your shit because and I don't mean that in a dismissive way.
No,
I
no, no, of
just
course, no, no, no,
to what
totally.
um, because that that I don't have kids. Nieces and nephews who I love dearly, but I don't have kids. Um, but my character in the show
Hmm.
does. He has three kids. You only see one of them. That's the one that's in high school. Um, and there was a storyline. It wasn't a storyline. I'm not going to say it was a storyline. It wasn't a storyline. There was a kind of a subtext to how the character was moving
Mm,
in this series that's out. Um, and I wish we had more time to flesh it out. But at the same time, it's not. There's so many characters to fulfill in the show. But one of the things that you were talking about was that, like, how does someone deal with? Uh, in his case, it was grief,
mm,
but then also, Lyndon's marriage is like he's getting a divorce. Like
mm,
he doesn't see his kids as much. His kind of everything, his life as he knew it at the beginning of series 11 is just completely different. And add that, you got the death of Danny, who
mm,
in Lyndon's head is his Jason Todd. You know what I'm saying? Like
hmm.
he's the kid he couldn't save. And there was a scene that unfortunately got cut because of time. I mean, it was supposed to be in last week's episode, and I watched last week's episode, and I was like, yeah, I could totally see why it got cut. There's too many things
Too
to kind
much.
of.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it was a scene between him and his daughter, and she says, she throws him a little picnic, and like, I miss you, and so on and so forth. and she brings up Danny. She was like, "Oh, it must be hard, you know." And I mean, it's a shame. Yeah, again, it's a shame. It hit a cut on the floor because that was exactly what you were talking about. It's exactly what you're talking about. It's like, how do you? And obviously, your daughter's a lot younger um, than the character.
Mm.
Verity is like 13, 14 in the show. And as a father, it's so interesting, like, because I made the same decision you did, even though I'm not dad. It's like you have to keep going, but you kind of want to shield your kid from all of the stuff that you're going through. And
Yeah,
yeah, I just found it so interesting when you said that because I was just like, oh, that's
we
obviously
project
a
ourselves,
very
man. We protect
natural,
ourselves. Yeah,
do you know what I mean? That's obviously a very natural response where you just
it
like,
is.
so I understand. Again, for all the people that do have kids there, I know this is going to sound, I'm going to sound like a charlatan. I don't mean to, but on a very kind of remedial level, I understand what you're saying, especially when you have people depending on you. You can't. Again, this is another really bad example.
No, no, it's
A
fine,
really
bro,
bad
man. You
example.
always explain
But I'm
yourself,
gonna
so it's
hit
all
I'm gonna hit you
good.
with it. Um, but like I remember the first year of uni, and everybody was stressing out, man. Like, I think it was the end of the first term, and everybody was just stressing out, and we had things that we needed to get in and all of this stuff. And I remember being in like on like the mezzanine floor of like the main building with a lot of my classmates, and it was really like for students, it was just really intense because we did
Mm.
so many different subjects. We were just kind of like, and I remember seeing their reactions and talking to them, and just everybody, we're all in the same boat. And I made a decision. I was like, I'm feeling everything that these guys are feeling, but I'm not going to. We can't all be running around going crazy. And even though I'm feeling everything that you guys are, I'm gonna save you from it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's it's that whole thing of, oh, men don't show their emotions and all that kind of stuff. And it's just like, well, yeah, because sometimes it's not always the right time.
No, exactly, exactly.
And this
I
is,
can
I think,
agree with you on
something
that
that
one. Yeah.
people need to, people, yes, and again, you know, I'm not saying that you shouldn't show your emotions and you shouldn't, because I've always been a super emotional
Mm.
person, and I've actually had to get balance. I've had to go the other way. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Which is, I guess, one of the reasons why I did like Batman so much because there
Mm.
was that control, there was that kind of
There
like
was control. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
stoicness
Yeah,
and just kind of like, you
yeah.
know what I mean? It's just like, but yeah, I get it. I get it. Um,
No,
it's so funny. Like, this is totally off subject, but I want to get your thoughts on this.
go on.
As I was about to, I was dragging my heels, getting back into board again for some reason, and I was just kind of thinking about the story before I started rereading it. And I was just thinking to myself, isn't it funny that we have so much sympathy for characters like, Daredevil and even to some degree Batman? Even though for Batman it was just like, oh, it's so fucking cool. And so you just like him. So you know what I mean. It's, I
Yeah,
don't think it's sympathy, but like you can have a sympathy for characters like Matt, but like there's never sympathy for Superman.
it's a hard one because I think everybody's general perception of that is that he's the go-to is the all strong, but there are stories that deep that go into like this guy is an alien from another world and he's getting it from left, right, and center, man. So you guys need to
Hmm.
show him some love, and they did. I think I'm trying to remember which writer it was that kind of put it in a perspective where he struggles as well. It's not easy.
Oh yeah,
I can't
I
remember
think we
what
definitely
issue it
touched on it
was.
in Grant Morrison's All
That's
Star
right.
Superman.
Yes, that's right. In All-Star Superman,
Yeah,
there is a few as well that are on there, but you're right.
but
It's not something that's
yeah,
not. in that
But like, if
world.
you're talking about like beyond like fandom, beyond like people who who have a vested interest in these characters and these stories, like the general public, there's no sympathy for Superman, and I
Well,
think there's
Zack
some. I
Snyder
think
tried to
that's
show
so
it.
interesting. But again, there's something about this idea that, and I used to do it. I remember, we definitely spoke about this on the last
Yeah,
call.
yeah,
I used to do it. I used to watch Smallville with my mum, and my mum's a massive Superman fan. She's
yeah.
always loved Superman, and she'll continue to love Superman. Do you know what I mean? Like, uh, and I remember watching Smallville, and seeing like teenage Clark like moping about, and I remember thinking to
Yeah.
myself, um, like you could do anything, bro. Like, what is this? What? Do you know what I mean? Like, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Like, you're Superman. Like, why? What is this?
What's up? Yeah.
And now I'm older,
You get it.
and I have been fortunate enough to have uh, certain opportunities, and yeah, certain. Let's just say certain opportunities. It doesn't negate from the very real life, you know, issues that we all come up against. You know what I'm saying? In the
Mm-hmm.
same sense that, like, just because you can, shoot lasers out your face and fly and do everything that, you could possibly, you could do, you just can do anything.
No, that's right.
That doesn't mean that you've got it set. It's that same kind of mentality of like, oh, well, you're rich. What have you got to worry about? It's like, yeah, okay, this isn't about me, by the way. I ain't rich. But like a rich person where it's just like,
Yeah.
well, you're rich. What's your problem? It's like, okay, so, but yeah, but so that person can pay the rent or the mortgage, or they can buy a nice car, or they can go on holiday, or they could do all the things that people do with their money, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that doesn't equate to happiness. Like, being Superman doesn't mean that you don't have those things. But I just found it so fascinating that even now it's this kind of idea of um yeah, there's just no kind of there's almost no room for it. And I think there's a level of hypocrisy in the kind
Mm,
of
I can
in
agree
the
with you on
world that
that.
we live in,
Definitely.
because
Yeah,
it's like,
definitely.
and I suppose if I'm good, if I'm gonna be honest with you and whoever decides to listen or watch. That's something I find with in my life. Like, I present in a particular kind of way,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you feel it sometimes. You feel it where people just kind of, when you talk to people, you interact with people, they don't want certain things from you. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? They want a particular, because you come across a certain way. They want particular things from you. They
That's
don't
right.
want you to be, if you present as strong, people don't want you to be weak. They don't know what to do with that. And I know it's controversial because people are just like, no, that's not true, but it fucking is, man. Like, sometimes
So
it's like,
true.
you know what I mean? It's just like, it's that thing where it's just like, okay, well, great. So it begs the question, like, what do you do with that?
Mm-hmm. No,
Do you
that's
know what I mean?
true.
It's like, yeah, I'll just
Exactly.
be yourself. And it's like, but that's all well and good. But if the perception of you in other people's eyes outweighs the thing that you have and you want to express, it will be met with a certain level of resistance,
Exactly.
which isn't
Exactly.
gonna, you know what I mean? Which isn't
No.
really gonna make it better to be. I don't know what I'm saying. So I don't want anyone to listen to this and feel like I'm saying, don't be yourself. Be someone else. I'm not saying that at
No,
all.
no, no, of course not.
Um,
I think what you're trying to say is, is there's a level of how much you put yourself out there, isn't it? I think where you
yeah,
have a
yeah, I
limit. I
guess
think
so.
there's a limit of how I how I am around people. The first thing people come up to me, and the way you kind of push yourself out there, you're gonna have a bit of resilience before you can trust somebody, before you kind of open up completely. So I think it works around in all manners, where you kind of, yes, I'm myself, but I'm not gonna give you too much just yet. I'll give it to you in doses. I think it's
Yeah,
it's it's it's
yeah.
it's easy
I
for
think that's
people
really
to
smart.
digest
Yeah,
that really well, because I find
yeah.
like,
I think.
yeah, I can be like that. I could be overwhelming because I'm so excited about something. Maybe not
Mm,
everybody will agree, but I'm so
yeah.
passionate and so excited that I can't even get my words out properly, and I'm losing the plot of what I was supposed to say, and because I'm
Mm,
just an excited kid. So now I
yeah,
know that, oh,
yeah,
tone
yeah.
yourself down a little bit, slow yourself down, and you'll
Mm,
realize that your passion will come out in what you say because you tone yourself down. But then,
oh,
my wife is
what's
like,
going
Kibbs,
on?
I have no idea what you said there, but you sound excited. And I said, yes, I am, but I'm sorry, I couldn't, it happens. And I still have that. It's a communication problem that I think I go through, but it's because I'm so
Mm,
excited. And that's just me when it comes to getting a new comic book, or watching a new film, or getting a
mm.
new collectible. And it's like, wow, I'm lost for words. And then people in the review would be like, Kibbs, I don't know what the fuck you're chatting about, but you sound like you're having fun. As long as, and if
Yeah,
that comes
yeah,
across, sometimes that works
yeah.
and sometimes it doesn't connect. So then I've realized how to dial myself down. And I suppose that happens with characters as
Yeah. Mm,
well, and they
mm.
don't, the one thing that get pushed about Superman is that it's hope. It's hope, it's hope,
Yeah.
it's hope. You look at him, it's hope, it's hope. But then it's like, hold up, dude.
But then this is what I'm saying. Like, yes, has this kind of wealth of like generosity of spirit and all the rest of that. But like, is it the fact that people look at him and see hope? Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Is it the fact that
no.
when people are like, oh, that's his hope, like he is he is what the idea of goodness, like that gives me
Mm.
hope. But you know what I'm saying? So you don't want to see hope having a bad day.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you know
It's
what I'm
true
saying?
because you
Like
put that veil
that's
over
real.
yourself. Like I look at Superman when I see it, and I see like I think 1992, the John Barnes series that came out, The Man of Steel, and it was a 6-part
Man,
issue. Is
too. I was
that
no,
92 or
that
91?
was no, it was
92.
earlier than that, man. Because I remember having to get back issues with that.
I think
It
probably,
was like
but
it was the 80s. It was the
it's
80s because
that.
that John Byrne was the first
That's
person to
right.
make Lex Luthor
Yes,
a yuppie, like a
yes, yes,
businessman.
yes, yes, yes. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that era, because that was my first uh when I my first comic books, when I got into comic books, was because that was handed to me from my uncle. And when I saw
Mm.
Superman in that,
That's
I
hard,
didn't
man. I
see
love
it.
that. Love that
Yeah,
miniseries.
I didn't see hope. I didn't see, his strength or anything. I saw creativity, bro. We see
Mm.
motion comic books now, but when I first opened up those pages as a kid, those panels
Mm.
moved. They moved,
Yeah,
bro.
man. They were great. There's something about like it's interesting because I don't know if you have this, but I know we're getting way off there, but it's fine. We're just
No, no, it's
chatting,
fine.
shooting the
It's all
breeze
right.
with it. But like, I think that for me, the way my brain works, sometimes there are quintessential artists for certain characters, and I don't think there's. I think it's down to individuals' tastes,
Hmm.
but I think everybody kind of has whether it's their favorite art, whether it's their favorite artist for a character, for me personally, there's certain artists who I'm just like they have to be like as far as drawing a certain character, they have to be top three or top
Hmm.
five or whatever it is because there's something about the way they draw them that makes them that really that really kind of I'm gonna put this that really kind of like encapsulate the characters. And I think John Burns Superman did that because he was broad chest like farm boy, tall and muscular and all the rest of that. I think a more extreme version of that, but I still love. I've actually got like a figure of that somewhere. Is Ed McGuinness's Superman? Like for me, when I see Ed McGuinness's Superman, I'm just like, that's Superman. Because Ed McGuinness draws characters quite chunky, so maybe he wouldn't be my choice for a Nightwing
Hmm.
artist, but he's like that's like for me, it's like when I see Ed McGuinness as Superman, I was like, that's Superman. Do you know what I mean? Because
No,
he is
definitely.
just
Yeah, yeah. It looks amazing.
huge. Do you know what I mean? Like
Amazing.
this larger than life thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, bro. Thank you for your time, man. I don't want to keep you too long, and I know we can go into
Okay.
even more. But what I wanted to do while we're on this call now is what do
Mhm.
we set up our next call for, and not wait too long. But what because I feel like it gives me
I
something
don't
because
know.
I haven't picked up something in a while, bro. To be honest, just because of how busy it's been. So reading Born
Yeah.
Again this weekend, it gave me that inspiration to start reading again. So I started reading. Where's it gone? Let me go grab this. So Devil's Rain.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I've
There
started
was
this.
rain.
It's
Yeah.
been sitting there. I've gone through the first couple of issues, but I'm actually really enjoying this, bro. So, but if there's
Yeah.
something else that we could jump on in the next month or two and say which ones, which it doesn't matter what it is. Which one would you like to jump on and talk about again?
You know what? I was racking my brains. I was like, oh shit, what should I do? Uh, but the one that jumps out at me is Sean Murphy, man. Dark Knight.
Ooh,
I mean, sorry, White Knight.
cool. White Knight, White Knight. Okay, cool.
White Knight, because that's another thing. Like we were talking about like mental health and stuff, but like with Sean Murphy's work on
So good.
Batman,
So good.
the White Knight stuff, he just he's it's so dense, like it's so not in a not and that's not a cuss.
Mm,
That's good. It's so it touches on so many different things. It touches on like gentrification. It touches on on the idea of rehabilitation. It touches
hmm.
on the idea of the elite and
Yep,
how Batman plays into all of those things, and about policing and
that's
all
right.
these things. And I just think it's I think he's this word gets thrown around. Like, I think he's fucking genius, man. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
the way
definitely,
his
bro.
mind works is
So
just
good.
like,
So good.
and it's another reason why I picked up Tokyo Ghost because I love White Knight,
Bro,
and when I
some of the
read
best
Tokyo Ghost, I
artwork
was
as
like,
well.
yeah. But I feel that I really need to put money in his GoFundMe for the Zorro.
Yes.
Um, I really need to do that because I really want to read that. I think that Sean Murphy just has something to say
Yeah, definitely.
in his
He
books.
definitely
He just
does.
has
In those
when
books,
he's
they
writing and he's drawing, he has something to say.
amazing.
Um, yeah, man. So let's do White Knight.
Okay, we'll do that. White Knight it is. All right, cool. Guys, well, first, thank you for coming on to the show again, bro. I know it's been way too long, but now we've got this next one. So, guys, get ready. Sean Murphy,
Yeah.
the Sean Murphy world. We're gonna get into it. White Knight. To the listeners, massive thank you to people who watch. I can't thank you guys enough, guys. If you can't see us on YouTube and you're on commute, we're on all other streaming platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. Oh my God, it's amazing. It just keeps growing. It keeps growing, but we are
Yeah.
so grateful for the love that you give to the channel and the messages that we get. I'm overwhelmed sometimes by the love and the messages. So thank you so much because we continue to do this, and then you guys inspire me to do this still. Even though I had a break for 2 months, you guys still rooted for me,
Mm.
and half of you hardly know me, but you probably know me through the podcast, and I can't thank you enough for that because it's it's working. I'm still here and I'm still doing it, which is amazing. So thank you so much, dude. Thank you for coming on, man. Honestly,
No problem, man.
your
Appreciate it.
knowledge and your background in comic books really elevates conversations and because you can get people on and you know it's hard to say and I'm not being bad in any way and into any of my guests because everybody has a platform that they love, but it's always
Hmm.
nice because I'm a lover of comic books and you are as well. We could the depth of talk and the conversation we could go on for 5 hours.
Mm.
So that's
Yeah.
much
No, I
much
appreciate it,
appreciated
man.
for
I
your time,
appreciate
man.
it.
Much appreciated for your
Yeah.
time, and hopefully we catch up soon, man.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
Awesome. All right, cool. Let me cut it there, bro. Honestly, thank you so much for coming back on.